Hello, best greetings from Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. My name is Viktor Fusov, and today we're making this video about insects, about entomology, about spiders, about invertebrates, animals which are living in your house, around your house, in the nature, and some people are really like these animals. It's very surprising, and I'm inviting people who is just enjoying just the nature around us and who is careful about nature. So that's why I named this video stream as Entomology, Insects and Spiders Addict. What means addict actually? Yes, for people who is just not familiar with English. So we need to go to Collins Dictionary to read some synonyms. What about addict? Well, what is about addict? Addict, it means dope find, freak, head, junkie. This is a synonym. Junkie or just a user. And if you are addicted to something, you can say the same synonyms. You are just absorbed by something. You are accustomed by something. You are just dedicated to insects and entomology, or you can be dedicated to spiders, dedicated to the study of biology of insects and spiders. Then you are just dependent from their beauty, from their behavior. You are just absolutely enjoying their style of life. You are just devoted to the study of insects and spiders and other invertebrates. You are disposed to them. You are fond of entomology and arachnology and archaeology. Well, you are habituated to study entomology. You are hooked by this subject of study: entomology, arachnology, archaeology, biology, and zoology. Well, you are inclined, you are obsessed by the study of entomology and archaeology and arachnology. But some people hate spiders. This is arachnophobia and insectophobia. But we are not talking about them. We are talking about people who are addicted to insects, who love them, who like them, who are just obsessed. Who are obsessed with their love to them. Inclined, you are obsessed, you are prone of love to insects or spiders or acari, mites, ticks. Why? Very funny, very interesting. Well, and addiction. What is addiction? Addiction is the same synonym. Craving, dependence, enslavement. This is habit or obsession. Obsession by something. You can be obsessed by the beauty of nature. An entomologist usually obsessed by the beauty of insects or mites or spiders. And for making some records, I also need my dictionary of entomology. Yes, I have it here. Well, because I prepared the next dictionary, a dictionary of entomology, so to say about insects. So sorry, but this is just introduction for people if you are gathering together to talk more about entomology. What means entomology? Entomology is a subdiscipline of zoology which involves the study of insects. The term comes from Aristotle, entoma, which means bloodless animals, which is included insects, arachnids, myriapods, and worms in his system of classification. The word entomon refers to the notched appearance of a body, which is created by stigmata and areas of articulation between sclerites. So the insects were just with many sclerites. So like this, funny, you see, segments, many sclerites or segments. Entomology is divided to several professional areas. so we need to refer it. So this professional area is agricultural entomology, applied entomology, economic entomology, forensic entomology, very difficult one, insect morphology, insect pathology, medical entomology, taxonomic entomology or systematics, taxonomy, urban entomology, and veterinary entomology. And also we will say arachnology about spiders, and acarology about acarine mites, and of course some disciplines involved in agronomy and is the study of plants in the botany. Well, very, very wide discipline of entomology and how people become addicted, enslaved, obsessed, dedicated to entomology. For some people it sounds like strange. Why to study insects, spiders, mites? Why? Because they're beautiful and interesting and amazing, and some entomologists becoming obsessed with their beauty. But of course, not all, not all, not all, don't worry about it. Some people, as in any profession, just obsessed just by the style of life. When you are just the scientist, so such kind of freedom in mentality, in time, in your habits, in scientific expeditions. So some people like habitual work of entomology because this is field entomology. This is work in a field, in forest, near some ponds, lakes, sea, and so on, or in the laboratory. This is so you don't need to go to the field. You are just working in the laboratory. And some people, we say, working from 9 till 5. But some entomologists were just addicted. They're obsessed. They're completely involved in the study of the subject. And why we started to do it? Well, why we became so obsessed? Because we became obsessed from their childhood. Yes, that's right. So, because when you are a child, you are small, you are smaller than adult, definitely, and all animals much closer to you. For some children, different animals, birds, lizards, snakes, are interesting. So we're interested to know more about nature. For some people, for some children, they're completely ignorant about it. So we say about insect lovers. We're talking about insects addiction, obsession of insects. Because for children, it's very easy to find insect, very easy to find myriapod or just diplopoda, very tiny worm, very tiny bee, very tiny beetle, and watch it just on a head, put it on a head and observe it. And of course, if parents will talk about insects, about spiders, about ticks, freely, don't say, come on, just snatch it, just crush it, just snitch it. So people will think insects, spiders, ticks, some invertebrates, very interesting, very surprisingly interesting. They're very unusual. They're living everywhere. They're just moving very funny. They're just flying very interesting, very funny, very fast, very fast. Very interesting to collect them. Very interesting to catch them. Very interesting to catch in the hand. Maybe to try to smell. Sometimes insects smell strange. And it became from the childhood. And of course, if children will just listen to their parents about different insects like wasps, bees, bumblebees, beetles from the childhood, it will be very helpful for them to know more about different animals. About bumblebees, for instance. How do they live like? How bees living like in their just beehive. So people became more familiar about insects and will not worry about very strange ants, which people say, oh, ants, very disgusting, very disgusting. Worms, very disgusting. Many people hate everything which is moving. Very surprisingly, actually. But we are not talking about these people. We are talking about people who enjoy different animals like this scholar wasp. This is not a bumblebee, this is wasp. Or this is Chrysidida wasp. Yeah. Big and very colorful. And of course, you will be very lucky to have different pictures and maybe even some toys like insects if you're a child. So you can play with big insects like that, or with small one like this on my poster. I distributed, put here with sticker some insects, not only this big one. These are my tiny parasitic wasps. They're tiny because here on poster they're big, but in reality they're very small, just 1 millimeter up to 5 millimeter. It's very big. I'm studying them as a professional entomologist, so I study their taxonomy and identification, how to identify different very small insects using, and I use microscope. I'm making some, many, not some, just microscopic slides to look under the microscope, to make photos, to take photos, to make identification, and to write some scientific papers. This is a job of entomologist. But we start from the beginning, from the childhood. In the childhood, some insects come to you naturally, as I say. So where you insects flying and people becoming addicted and obsessed by their behavior. Because if you come into a kitchen, maybe you're familiar with these beans. Yes, we're very familiar. And for children, it's also just can be like a toy. But sometimes you open your beans and you see a lot of holes and you say, oh, so disgusting beetles, so disgusting some worms ate all my beans. So very bad words about these beetles. But to be honest, actually, if you keep them in this condition closed and you do nothing, bees will come one by one and will eat everything inside, because you made very suitable, very convenient environment for bees, not for bees, for beetles here inside. So they do like very much this stock and will eat it. So this is bean beetles, Acanthus salides obtactus in Latin name, will eat everything. But for children it's very funny, because when there will be many beetles, they will crawling everywhere around. So with this creepy crawly, I have only one already hatched, but this beetle can escape even from this plastic jar. Just can cut here the rounded hole and can escape to the light to search for another beans somewhere in your stock, in your shelves, in your kitchen, or maybe go to the neighbors, or maybe to your field yard, to stock of your beans, and will lay eggs and will develop into the larvae, pupa, and then just no new beetles, and definitely will damage and eat your beans. So as I talking about in my different stories, keep it in a cold area or just put it in a freezer and all beetles will die. Sorry about that. But if you want to observe them, if you want to look for their behavior, you just can keep it in these tiny small jars. And you can see how they are crawling, and you can change the food stock and to see how many of them will be developing in one bean. That's very interesting, because knowledge about insects definitely will usually started with different books, as I said. If your parents will buy you or bought you just a big books like that. Sorry, this is a very colorful book, very easy to show you. It's easy to know more about insects, how they about their morphology, about these bees. So this book of Piotr Socha from Poland and translated in several languages, in Polish, in Russian, and this one in Ukrainian. In Ukrainian, bjoli, which means bees, honeybees, or just bees. So, of course, these books are very knowledgeable and interesting. So if you have children and you want to give them some knowledge about insects, about nature in general, so buy some nice, interesting books, colorful. Of course, they're expensive. Of course, they're expensive, but you do not buy them every day. Just so this is investment in the education of your children. So this will be improving the behavior, the knowledge, and maybe the future of life in the whole earth, because people need education. Not only the culture, but culture is also education as part of culture. So here's some lot of different interesting stories about honeybees and some written stories on how beekeepers producing bees and producing honey, collecting honey, harvesting honey. So big colorful pictures are very valuable. And so you see how many beehives, very nice. And even how many beehives like sculptures, some people do it. And this is harvesting of honey just in a wild condition, just like this in India. If some people watching me in India, in Nepal, just you can write down there, just under the comments, about collecting of, if you know how your local people collecting the honey from trees. For me, that's amazing, very interesting, very funny. Very dangerous, because people usually not very rich, so they use very poor protection against bees, so they're stung very much with bees, despite they use some smell, they use some smoke, try to protect themselves with some leaves and smoke from leaves, but still they are stung, but they're collecting it because this is their money and their style of life, so they exchange it for food and other stocks. Yeah, so after that we will see here, this is a flowering tree, because honeybees and other wild bees, very important pollinators. And to know more about the start is in childhood, not only in a school, because in school usually a lot of discipline, but some people surprisingly or not surprisingly becoming addicted, becoming obsessed, becoming involved in the study of insects, spiders, mites, some strange uh, myriapods, some different invertebrates. Actually, many people like big vertebrates animals, like cats, dogs, some sheep, cows. Okay, all these animals in the backyard, in your field, near your house, especially in a village. But some very, I would say, observative, very careful people, children, kids, boys and girls as well, becoming very interested in insects, but in their structure, because insects have a different structure. They're not like vertebrates, they're totally different. They have a body with an external skeleton, so they have a white colored hemolymph in their blood, so they have not closed blood circulation, so blood is coming out of them if you touch it. So some of them biting, some of them feeding on your food stock. So you can find them very often near your house, near, and it's very nice, very good that some children becoming interested in insects. For example, I also like to show this book with this picture, and this book is picture like this is ladybird with boy and girl, and this is a book of Jan Larry, Adventures of Carrick and Carrick and Valek. This is a book which was written in old time, I guess more than 40, 50 years ago. But in this book, a lot of interesting stories about this professor of entomology who is just moving everywhere around because together with the children, because these children became very small. This is a story when children became they drank just a special liquid and they became small like insects. Very tiny microscopic children. Yeah. Sometimes you can find this story even in the movies. There are several movies about adults who became just like this very tiny, like insects with very small size, like ants, like flies. But this book was written 50 years ago without great progress in television and in movies, and illustrated in that time so far, like you see here. Let's see here. There's a big wasp and who is just carrying the tiny girl. Yes. And this is actually a very nice book for reading for children. Jan Larry, this is a Soviet, actually, writer in the Soviet Union. Yeah, but who was born in Latvia, so he is Latvian. And the book Adventures of Carrick and Valley is very famous for children who was born in the USSR because in that time we didn't have too much children's literature, or at least less than now, and informational clouds were less than that, and people were reading books and writers were writing books, and the number of these books was huge, and many people liked to read books. Well, Adventures of Carrick and Valley is a very interesting book. I am really advising you because Professor also became very small. These are children, these wings of butterflies, and this Professor, and these are children, both boy and girl. So they were traveling, and finally they became big bag, big size bag. So this is a happy end story. So I'm not quite sure if this book were translated in English. Maybe. So if you are searching in internet, try to search for Carrick and Valley. Carrick and Valley, not Valley. Carrick and Valley, Jan Larry writer. So I'm really advising you not only this book Piotr Socha about bees, but also about Carrick and Valley. So because obsession of insects and enjoyment of study of insects just started for many professional entomologists in their childhood. So some entomologists, as I said, devoted to the subject not only from 9 a.m. till the 5 p.m. evening time, and then just totally don't like the subject. Yes, some people, some entomologists do not like the subject. Yes, to be sure, do not like, even hate, because now this is a capitalism society. Some people like to receive more money rather than knowledge and just discoveries. And if discoveries not paid very well, but in the former USSR, from where I was born, and where I've been living for a long time, actually, to the present time in the post-USSR countries, entomology study paid not the same like in a bank, a commercial or in commercial firm. Well, but that's another story. Another story. And so some popular books also very important for creation of addiction, obsession, of enjoyment, of love and pleasure, and search for discovery in the life of insects, spiders, and other invertebrates. Because after the childhood, after the school time, some people who was interested in insects, spiders, invertebrates, and animals, and in all pets together in plants, some of these children, already not children, already teenagers, are going to the university, becoming university students, and then later some of them can be either teachers, either just business workers, or either scientists, maybe biologists, maybe not biologists, but still, if we got some education, got some knowledge and interest in biological subjects like insects, spiders, mites, invertebrates, so they will know about this subject much more than others. And of course, in this time, very important to use some nice, interesting books, for instance, for identification of insects, because after the school and last years of school, it's quite interesting to search for correct names of animals whom you are observing, whom you are watching. So for that, you can search, you can buy, you can find in the library as well, or in internet in some websites. In internet, even some free books, but of course, books, so this is much better because book you can keep in hands, you can move it more quickly, and you can easily manipulate with book to search for different colorful pictures. So because this book actually about different families of caterpillars, of families butterflies, Lepidoptera in Latin, like this huge butterflies, or genus Lamptoptera, Raffium, Ornithoptera paradisea, Ornithoptera paradisea, these butterflies of paradise, and different families. So for that, very convenient to buy and very important to buy different identification books for identification of insects. If you love butterflies, you can identify using these colorful photographs and some description of in identification keys some of butterflies. Of course, not all, but basically at least family, subfamily, genus, and you maybe some in some keys even species name can be possible to identify even with some colorful atlases like that devoted to butterflies or maybe to beetles, for example, because the most common groups are beetles, and definitely butterflies. So and all tiny small, this is tiny mantis, praying mantis. Here we can see some grass flies, some cockroaches, some grasshoppers. On my poster, some tiny small. So termites, Isoptera, yeah, this is big one. Others were very small, but were on poster. Some Formicidae, just on the top. Formicidae ants, some beetles, Coleoptera, Lepidoptera, and who's here? Grasshoppers and dragonflies, Odonata. And all different books with identification keys can be very useful for you for identification. For example, this book, as I showed it many times already, this book with colorful and white and black photographs of different beetles, because in a book